and love, everybody. Ringo here. Beautiful day in LA.
So, it was good to be able to kind of get it out in a song.
The whole, origin of where we're all coming from.
I'm prepared for death because I don't believe in it. I think it's just getting out of one car and getting into another.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. Hard to believe, but this is our 21st episode, and man, we're having a lot of fun doing this. But before we get into introductions, we're going to be talking about the film yesterday and our thoughts, and hopefully you guys will will join in the conversation. Let us know about your thoughts about the film. And just so everybody knows, I said it earlier during a little preview video, but we will be discussing spoilers, so enter at your own risk if you don't want to be spoiled yet. But it is past the third weekend, and so hopefully everybody that's wanted to see it has seen it by now. But before we get into that, we're going to introduce myself and all these wonderful people I get to do this great show with. But first, my name is Tom Hunyadi. You may know me from my show, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast that I do with my cousin, David Gargolino. Joining me, she just put on her crown. Oh, my God. It's the queen of all media, or all Beatles media, I should say. She is
all
the
media's
author.
good.
Yeah, right. She is the author of this little dandy here, Songs We Were Singing, and Michael Jackson FAQ. She is the one and only Kiddo Tool Kit. How goes it?
Hey, Tom. Hi, everybody. And, Tom said in a teaser video earlier today, the Queen might wear a crown. So this is your fault, Tom.
Very good. I'll take that point. I'll take that responsibility. It's all my fault, everybody. But anyways, also joining us today is the DJ extraordinaire. He is the DJ of a weekly show called Every Little Thing, and by that I mean he really does play every little thing. He is also the co-host of the popular podcast called Things We Said Today with Alan Kozin and Darren DeVivo, and he is the one and only the Dr. Johnny Fever lookalike that I've been hearing everybody's been saying lately. He is Ken Michaels. Ken, what's going on?
I have a feeling I'm going to be hearing that a lot now. Now that you had to bring that up, Tom, thanks so much.
Nice
doing
going.
good, Tom. Kit,
Tom
everybody.
too.
Yeah,
I love the crown, Kit. Keep it on.
Thank you.
It'll be a fixture.
There you go.
From now on. No one will recognize you without it.
Right. I know. There you go. And once again, Kenneth Womack won't be able to join us today. So, stepping into the plate, the pinch hitter, he's the YouTube sensation, Joe, Mean Mr. Mayo. What's going on, Joe?
Hi, how you doing, Tom? Good to see you. And also Kit, the Sun Queen, as I often say. and Ken, hi. So I'm glad to be here again.
Awesome. Great. Well, before we get into all that fun stuff, we're going to get to Ken Michaels and all the latest news. So, Ken, as the song goes, take it away.
I was expecting to hear that, Tom. Thank you. Well, first of all, we have to bring up, as everyone I'm sure has seen, Paul McCartney ending his Freshen Up tour with the show at Dodger Stadium in LA, with a few special guests that joined him, one of which was Ringo Starr, who came out and drummed behind Paul. And with the band, they did Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and also Helter Skelter. And then at the very end of the show, Joe Walsh came on. And he jammed with Paul and the band for the end, where they all trade off solos there. So I guess you guys have seen this, and I'm curious to know what you all thought.
I was thrilled. I mean, I couldn't. I think, Joe, you said the same thing in your on your channel, that I couldn't stop smiling when I was watching. Ringo just looked like he was having the time of his life, and seeing him seeing him drum on Helter Skelter, I mean,
Yeah.
that, and of course,
Oh yeah.
reprise, but for some reason, Helter Skelter really got me. I just thought,
Yeah,
wow.
me too.
Yeah, that he's never performed that live that I'm aware of, and it was just great. Paul, you could tell he was feeding off the energy, and the Joe Walsh part was great too. Poor Joe isn't getting the attention, that Ringo's getting, and I mean, Joe just looked like he was living his dream. I mean, it was just so wonderful to see, and he just kept playing, and I think Paul finally just said, "Oh, we're not going to take turns anymore. Fine, we'll do it this way." But it was just what a way to cap off that tour.
Yeah, Paul even said that he kind of they improvised that, at the end. I don't think they rehearsed it at all. It's just they went with the flow, and however they played it is what came out. But I will agree with all of you. For me, the joy in watching that with Paul and Ringo is seeing that big smile on Ringo's face as he's drumming to Helter Skelter, and that they're having the time of their lives. So it isn't just the fact that they were two Beatles, but they just genuinely enjoy doing this. And as long as they enjoy it, then we're all the more better for it. So I loved watching it myself.
And two guys almost 80 years old each, almost rocking the house. I mean, this was incredible. And Ringo was so into it at moments that I spotted. Really had a great time watching. I wish I was there, but maybe next time.
Okay, other news. Due to the success of the film yesterday, which we'll be talking about, 5 Beatles songs have entered Billboard's Hot Rock Songs charts. Here Comes the Sun at number 9, Let It Be at number 12, Yesterday at number 14, Hey Jude at number 16, and Come Together at number 17. And the Billboard charts, the album charts, also have the Beatles occupying 3 slots. The Beatles won, which is like the biggest success story for the Beatles really in this century. When you think of the number 43 album in the country right now, Abbey Road is at number 67. The White Album is at 154. Now, the film yesterday drops to number 5 in box office sales after a very impressive 3 weeks at number 3. And it grossed over $48 million.
Yep.
Okay. While we're waiting for the official statement, I have to emphasize that because it's not official yet, but I'm sure everybody watching the show has seen the reports that have turned up online about the upcoming Abbey Road remastered box set. And this, of course, to celebrate its 50th anniversary. What we've been hearing is that a super deluxe edition will be coming out, which will have 3 CDs, a Blu-ray, and a hardcover book. The 3 CDs would consist of the first disc being a remix of the album, the other 2 CDs being demos and outtakes. The Blu-ray, you can pack so much on a Blu-ray, will have a Dolby Atmos mix of the album, a 5.1 surround sound mix, and a high-resolution stereo mix. And then there's the book, which has Paul McCartney contributing 80 never-before-seen photos taken by Linda from the studio sessions, and Kevin Howlett has done most of the writing for it. So there's a lot of different configurations, as you would expect. In addition to this super deluxe version, there'll be a deluxe version of 2 CDs. One is the remix, the other is made up of demos and outtakes from the 2 different CDs. There'll be a 1 CD version of Just Abbey Road, the remix. There'll also be a 3 LP box set with the remix and 2 albums of demos and outtakes. There'll also be a 180-gram vinyl edition of the remixed album. Plus, it'll be available in non-physical formats for purchase or streaming. Now, they're saying that it's strongly rumored that Paul and Ringo will be attending a listening party at Abbey Road Studio, number 2 Studios, and that would be on August 28th. But I did check Ringo's tour schedule, and he's supposed to be playing in Oakland that day. So I don't know how accurate that is.
Yeah. Plus 2 days prior, I'll be seeing him here in Phoenix. So.
Right. He's probably going to be hanging out with you. So
yeah,
exactly. Have time for the party.
Exactly.
I'm seeing him on the 17th. Hey, Ringo.
I'm seeing him, I think, on that. Which show is that? Farmingville show?
Yeah, Swabitville.
Okay, I'll be at that show too.
Oh, 17th. Yeah,
Okay.
right. 17th.
Yeah, we'll have to meet up for that.
We have a
let's.
question which kind of ties into the news, saying, what do you think are the odds that Paul will join Ringo at Bethel Woods on August 16th, the actual 50th anniversary of Woodstock?
Well, what are the odds that the show actually happens?
Exactly. That was my first thought.
Rumor is that it's not looking good for the show. So
that's what I've heard too. Yeah, it's really been a disaster. Organizing it and everything. I mean, if it happens, my preliminary guess would be no. And the Queen has spoken. And now I'm going to take this off my head before my head explodes. This thing's tight.
No, you got to keep it on. That's the new arrangement here. You are the queen. You act like a queen.
All right.
And you look like a queen.
All right.
So anyway, if all this is accurate about Abbey Road, the reissue is expected out September 27th. All right. The new issue of Uncut magazine is out. It's called Introducing Ringo Starr, the Ultimate Music Guide, and it includes in-depth reviews of every Ringo album, a section on Ringo's films, one on Ringo rarities, and archived interviews from the Enemy and Melody Maker, newly discovered. So I haven't seen that yet, but I will be on the lookout for that. And whoever it is that reviews Ringo's albums in his whole career, maybe we should have him on the show.
There you go.
I'm going to call Barnes and Nobles later tonight and see if they have a copy.
Okay.
There you go.
I'll do the same thing. And as all of you know, and Tom is ready for this, get ready. Ringo's album from 1976, Ringo's Rotogravure, has just been released as a green vinyl exclusive through, as Tom just mentioned, Barnes & Noble. It's being released on the Friday music label, and they've been putting out Ringo's Bad Boy releases in different colored vinyl. So
it appears to be the new home of Ringo reissues lately, because they've got Ringo the Fourth coming soon, and they've put Time Takes Time out, and as you said, Ken, Bad Boy. So so I'm waiting for all of Ringo's catalog to come out and remastered, all of it on CD for me anyway. Yeah. Well, I do believe that this was released on CD as well.
Really?
I'll double check that. Yeah, I think on the Barnes & Noble's website it says CD and vinyl.
Okay. And is it remastered?
Yeah, that's what I was just
thinking. Yeah, that's the funny thing too. It says right here, excuse me one second. It says mastered by Joe whoever at Friday Music Studios using from the Atlantic recording tapes. So it doesn't say analog tapes, it just says tapes. So
we don't know for sure.
We don't know for sure.
Okay. Yeah. And it doesn't say remastered.
No, it just says mastered.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll see. Got to get in touch with someone at Friday Music there.
There you
Good
go.
idea.
Okay. Paul posted a video not long ago of him reading from his new children's book, Hey Grand Dude, which officially comes out September 5th as a hardcover book and on Kindle. Also, we hear that Paul is going to appear on a new song on guitar and as co-composer from Australian artist Thelma Plum, Plum or Plume. That'll be on her forthcoming album, Better in Black, spelled BLAK. So we'll look out for that. Stella McCartney, I'm sure you've heard all the news about her. She posted a new video for her new fall collection called All Together Now, which actually mixes footage in this video from Yellow Submarine with young people playing guitar and drums. You will not hear any Beatles music in the video, but you will see characters like a Blue Meanie in there and Jeremy Boob. Yoko sent a live video out for something called Bells for Peace. This is for the opening of the Manchester International Festival. And while Yoko was singing lines about wishing for peace in the world, the crowd actually participated by shaking their bells and ringing them for peace. So Yoko is doing what she's been doing all along from her days with John and continuing throughout since John's passing and spreading the message of peace in the world. Danny Harrison has just released a brand new song, and it's called Motorways, Erase It. And Erase It is in parentheses. And it's now available on streaming services. And he's actually been performing the song on tour, opening for Jeff Lynne's ELO. And let's see here. A new film is in the works called Prefab, which tells the story of the band that became the Beatles, the Quarrymen. And it'll feature members of the group from 1956 to 1959, including Colin Hanton, Chas Newby, Len Gary, and Rod Davis. And these four gentlemen actually were recording at the legendary Abbey Road Studios for this film. All of these members are all important in the history of the Beatles, but Colin Hanton, the drummer at the time, has a lot of significance because he was with them through this entire period. And he got to witness, John and Paul meeting each other for the first time. And also when George joined the band. So Colin left the group with the nucleus of what became the Beatles. And we don't have any word yet when we can expect this film. So that's all the news I have at the moment.
There is a gentleman, his name is Mark Maron. He has his podcast called WTF.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and he just posted his episode with Sean Lennon.
Oh.
So check that out.
Heard it?
No, not yet. I just saw it today, so didn't get a chance yet. So
I've heard it's very good, but as soon as I can, I'll be listening to that too.
Sure.
Same here. All right, so that's it for the news. And first, before we get to yesterday as well, we're going to talk a little bit about the latest Paul reissues, specifically the Amoeba, the media gig. Joe, if you want to pop up the album real quick and
well, there we are. Sorry about the glare. There you go. There you go. Nice.
Yes. But I
nice
got
cover there.
Yeah, this has to be probably the best of the batch. For me, anyways. I listened to it last night, and what an amazing live performance, and the crowd was excellent. Ken Michaels, what were your thoughts of the show?
I'm blown away by it, and I listened to this in the car, and I thought that the audio quality was stunning, really clear, and the thing is, this concert took place in 2007, and you notice when you listen to this how great Paul's vocals still were back then. I mean, they still are great, but we also have noticed how it's deteriorated a bit through the years. But man, his vocals are so strong all throughout, and that's
right.
What impresses me the most about this. Yeah. I think I'm going to really treasure this because there are some songs on here that when he toured with the band, he didn't do, from memory almost full, including That Was Me, which is a terrific performance, and also House of Wax. So just for those two songs alone, if you listen to Paul's vocals on both those songs, it's extraordinary. It's fantastic. It's a great live performance altogether of those two songs. And so I just can't get over how powerful his voice is, especially on House of Wax. It made me really wish that he'd have done it with the band on the tour. But, he's very loose during this show. He ad-libs a bit. He feels really comfortable. He points out Ringo in the crowd. There are certain songs on here. Many of the songs we've come to know Paul doing so many times on tour, especially, a lot of the Beatle classics. But it's nice to have something like Matchbox in there, which prior to that we've had from Trippin' the Live Fantastic, from the rehearsals, but not from an actual live performance on stage. And it's just an overall great vibe. Oh, Nod Your Head is actually a slight disappointment because Paul's vocals are so great on it. He's screaming. He's got that great voice when he screams, and it's only a little bit more than a minute of the song.
Right.
So, but yeah, all these performances are just wonderful. Only Mama Knows, which he did do when he toured with the band, but all the Beatle classics, it's just wonderful. You get that feeling of intimacy from doing this show, and what a cool idea to do this in a record store, in any record store for that matter. But I love it. I will say this many times over, just to get That Was Me, and just to get House of Wax, it's worth it. It's worth it just for to buy this.
It's a great performance. Great.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that This Was Me and House of Wax were definitely highlights. He's a very, very good voice with the show. Calico Skies again is another song that I cherish. That was a song that was part of my wedding, and Sea Moon has always been a favorite as well for me. So this live performance has definitely catapulted itself up to maybe just underneath Wings Over America for his best live album that he's officially released. But Joe, your thoughts on it?
Oh, well, I loved it. I played the CD. As Ken says, the quality is amazing. Sound quality, Paul's vocals, terrific. The band is tight. How about talking about Here Today a little bit? Paul always tends to get a little emotional, but this one is probably the most emotional because, he dedicated it not only to John, of course, but also to George and Linda. Right. And he breaks down, which is very touching at the end. And then I like how he says, well, it's okay. We can cry. We're all adults here, right? And he gets a good reaction from the crowd. That's very touching. A moment that I really, really like. I'm just looking at the the track listing. Even songs that I've heard before so many times, like I've Got a Feeling. He's done that, but I just love the way it sounds here. They're all top notch. Even things that I might say, I've heard this one a lot of times, like, Hey Jude, of course, but it's perfect here. It really suits the intimacy of the show, and you got people in the audience like Ringo, of course, and I saw Alanis Morissette, I think, in some of the footage, and Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, Jeff Lynne was there.
Jeff Lynne. But one thing I wanted to just throw in here, the vinyl, which is kind of odd, has Coming Up on it from the sound check. I might as well throw that in. That's not on the CD, and that's kind of a rare thing where the CD gets shortchanged. That's odd,
Right.
So I just love it. In fact, let me just end by saying that I think, and I've said this, in my review I did on my channel, I said this is going to be my go-to album. I think when people say, what's a good Paul live performance? I'm going to, of course, Wings Over America, sure, but I think this one's going to be right there when I recommend what I think is the best.
Yeah, cool. And Kit, you're still waiting for your copy?
I'm still waiting for my copy. I am even more psyched to hear it after hearing these reviews. And also, I have a comment here from astute viewer Matthew Smith, who says, "Love Only Mama Knows." And said Memory Almost Full is a great album overall, and that's aged quite well. I completely agree.
Agreed. Yeah,
I agree. I think that was an underrated album, and that's one of the reasons I'm really excited to hear this, because as you said, getting Only Mama Knows and House of Wax, and I mean, hearing those live, because he never plays them, plays them now. So so even for that alone, it's great to have.
Right. Cool. Excellent. So have you listened to Paul's Live yet, Joe? By chance?
I'm sorry?
Have you listened to Paul's Live yet? Can you hear me?
Haven't listened to it yet. I hear it's remastered. I hear it's supposed to be remastered. But for what it's worth, I just happen to have it here. If you want to just take a little look at that there. And I love the cover. I love the cover of this. And the kind of takeoff on, I guess, Paul is dead, Paul is live. Always really like that. And, you got some kind of cool colored vinyl here, little baby blue. And I didn't get around to playing it yet. I didn't get the CD of this one, though.
Right.
I'm sticking with the 1993 version.
Gotcha.
But maybe somebody can tell us how it sounds when they hear it.
Yeah, I did pick up the CD version of that, and I did pick up the CD version of the Russian album. So I'll probably spin these guys later this week, and then hopefully my color vinyl bundle will show up on Friday, like it says. So, but we'll see. But anywho, so shall we get to the main topic? Yesterday. So before we get into discussion, I'll give the little premise if anybody out there still hasn't seen it yet or anything like that. But struggling musician Jack Malik, played by Himesh Patel, announces to his manager Ely, played by Lily James, that he's giving up his dream of being a singer-songwriter. After Ely begs him to change his mind, Jack is hit by a bus during a worldwide blackout, and he wakes up a day or two later, we don't know, and discovers that he's the only person that can remember anything about the Beatles. And I guess that begs the question that we'll ask later on to everybody listening: what would you do if you were the only one that remembered the music of the Beatles? Would you go the same route as Jack did here, or would you do something different? But anyways, a few months ago, I think it was like 5 months ago, this trailer premiered, and we started hearing about the movie. Ken Michaels, what was your first impression when you saw the trailer, and then when you heard about this movie?
Well, obviously, I was interested to see it, but my first thought was that this is very much like a Twilight Zone episode.
Right.
If you grew up on the classic series, the old series, and every episode was half an hour, my only worry was, can this premise go an hour and a half to 2 hours? Can it last and hold your interest for that long? And it did succeed on that level for sure. But I thought it was a great idea to wake up in a world where there is no Beatles, and in this particular case, while a lot of people dwell on that aspect of it, it's just as much a part of the story that this is a guy that's down on his luck, and he's the only person, like you said, who seemingly, although later on we find out otherwise, is aware of the Beatles catalog and has all those songs in his head. And what do you do with that? Are you going to try to make yourself a star? And as we witness, I won't give too much away, everybody thinks this guy is a genius because he's coming up with all these great songs and it's pouring out of him. And if you were in his shoes, would you do the same thing that he did? And could you live with yourself knowing that you really didn't write these songs and everybody thinks that you're this genius, or will the truth ever be exposed about it? So there's more to it than just a guy wakes up and there's no Beatle music in the world and the Beatles never happened. So but my original thought was, can this work beyond half an hour? And it did for me.
Right. So ultimately, in my opinion, it is basically, it's a love story, in a Twilight Zone, as you said, Ken, kind of atmosphere with the Beatles just mixed in with it. Joe, your thoughts on your first reaction when you first heard about this film?
Well, I first heard about it, a long time ago before the trailer, and I said the first thing I thought was kind of like what Ken was saying. Well, how in the world are they going to sustain that for a whole movie? I like the premise of it, but Caitlin Larkin just came on here and made a comment that I happened to read up here, saying about they should have focused on the Twilight Zone aspect more of like, what's a world without the Beatles like, rather than the love story. I accept it as it is, a romantic comedy with a Beatles backdrop. But when I saw the trailer first, then I thought they were going to go more in a direction that it was going to be, the first trailer I saw, more of a, kind of Twilight Zone type of thing all the way, not so much the love story. But it still worked for me. I mean, I don't know how far you want me to go at this point. I mean, you want to wait, I'll give you my whole feeling on everything.
Wait a few minutes, sir.
That's the first impressions that I thought of it. I have the same as Ken. I mean, it's a very limited idea, but how are they going to do this? But I like what they did with it. Some reservations.
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. Same reservations with me too sometimes, because I'm not the biggest fan of covers when it comes to the Beatles music. I mean, there's some great ones out there, but I mean, we've got the Beatles music. Why, I don't want to, sit and listen to an hour and a half of covers if I don't have to. But I did appreciate, the work, because he did sing all these songs himself. So I respected that. And Kid O'Toole, your thoughts when you first discovered Yesterday?
Well, I think you just touched upon something, Tom, that, I think part of being a Beatles fan is we're extremely overprotective, and my overprotectiveness kind of kicked in when I first saw the trailer, where I thought, oh no, what are they going to do? Is this going to be, and I know some people love this film, but across the universe or something, I just thought, oh boy, what is, what are they going to do? And as I said, I completely acknowledge that I'm very overprotective when it comes to them. However, the idea was interesting, and as you've all been saying, and some of our viewers are saying, the Twilight Zone aspect of it, because it does get you thinking about that, and it also gets you, and I'm not going to go too much into this yet because we'll get into the review, but how much these songs have become ingrained in our culture and our lives. I mean, they're like the soundtrack, and to imagine, a world where they didn't exist, I mean, it's just, it's mind blowing to consider, because they're just, as I said, they're just so ingrained in our culture. So I thought, on the one hand, as I said, I was nervous. On the other hand, I'm like, well, it's an interesting concept. So we'll see if it works.
Right. Cool. Yeah, and bits and pieces did work for me, as we'll get into a little bit later on. But Joe, you've just come out of the gates loving this movie. You've seen it 3 times now. So
whoa. What? yeah. I admit to that. No, I like the movie. I wouldn't say I love it. I like it. I would give it. I like to rate movies in my movie reviews. I do 4 stars. I'm a 4-star guy. I rate this one 3 out of 4.
Okay.
If I was going to give it a star rating out of 4, my girlfriend, she lives for romantic comedy, romance movies in general, and the Hallmark Channel and romantic comedy. She really loved it. And we saw it 3 times, as I say, and a lot of it was because she wanted to see it again, but I didn't mind. I always like seeing a movie multiple times that I like, just to see, other people in the audience don't know what's coming yet, and you want to see their reaction, and how is it with different audiences, and so on. So I had that experience. But so I thought I did see. I admit to that. I saw it 3 times, and but I think you saw it twice though, Tom, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw it again today because it's been 3 weeks, But Matthew Smith just makes a good point here, because there's the reason why. And this is the reason why I wanted to see it again, because if I missed something here and there, and this is one of the things that I missed. I mean, did you notice that the airport was called Liverpool and not John Lennon? So, good eye on you, Mr. Matthew Smith, so, there's a lot of those little things in there that, I really appreciated and really fit this movie. And I'm sure we'll get into that for a second, or in a second. Ken Michaels, you might have seen this before. Did you see this before it officially opened, or did you see it on opening day?
Yeah, I saw a preview. It was a couple days before it opened.
Okay, so then let's hear your thoughts on the movie.
I think it's very good. I mean, if you look at it as strictly a fantasy and nothing else, then it works on so many levels. I mean, if you're a Beatle fan, you'll love it because of the Beatle music being in there. If you try and overanalyze it, which so many fans do, then you'll tend to get disappointed. I think it's an interesting idea to talk about what the world would be like, what the music scene would be like today if the Beatles never existed. But that's going to be all speculation. Right. What's kind of funny in this movie is that when Jack Malik, the main character, goes on his computer and he types in Beatles with an A, and he just gets the insect, he types in other things. He types in the Rolling Stones, and they appear.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Rolling Stones did happen. So then you start thinking, well, if the Beatles didn't happen, would the Rolling Stones have been the biggest band in the world? And would they have been the biggest influence? Your mind could race to those thoughts if you wanted to be. But, it's hard to imagine the world with without the Beatles, not just because of their music, but because they were so responsible for the whole British invasion happening here in America. And if you didn't have a band like that break the way that they did in such an explosive way, do you honestly think that all those other bands would have had the kind of success that they had? Right. And it's possible that those bands could have been successful, but probably not nearly as big as they were. But again, this is all speculation. And how do you make a film out of that?
That's all.
And I'm guessing that the Rolling Stones did not record "I Want to Be Your Man."
That's true.
Just as there's a moment where Jack is going through his records and frantically looking for Beatles records, and he goes through Bowie. He's looking for Bowie, and I'm thinking, I don't think Across the Universe is on there or Fame, on his Bowie albums.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, you can nitpick forever. I'm with you, Ken, on that. I know in the comments I've done with a lot of people, everybody has different opinions, but some people, to me, treat it kind of like they're expecting it to be hard science and like we're watching Star Trek or the Terminator, and it's just a kind of wacky romantic comedy fantasy, and I went with it myself. So I didn't expect it to be answering all these so-called plot holes maybe that you could pick on.
Yeah, and I also must say that one of the things that I love about the movie really is the acting, because the main character, Jack Malik, is very believable in his role, and you really sympathize with the guy for being a struggling musician. Maybe some of the people watching this right now and watching the movie is a struggling musician, or people who are, and they're down on their luck and they're about to give up, and he's so believable in that role. He'll be very down on himself and he'll say, I don't have the it factor, and so many musicians come to a point in their lives when they have to decide, what am I going to do? This is not really working out. And it just so happens that this whole thing, the blackout, happens right at that moment. But I mean, the acting is really good, as is the manager, who's always been in love with him. Yep. And Ed Sheeran is fantastic in this movie as well. I mean, he plays himself, but it's, sometimes it's not that easy to play yourself. You might overact, and it's true. It's like saying, hey, just be natural. Okay, but you find yourself being so self-conscious that you're not natural. But he's great in this movie. After giving it a little bit more thought, I happen to like Kate McKinnon a lot.
Thank you.
There is probably nobody that I can remember in the history of that show. There's so many people I love on SNL. But when it comes to playing over-the-top, sometimes very obnoxious characters that you want to strangle, nobody is better at that than Kate McKinnon. But sometimes I feel like in this particular movie, she was playing a character from SNL, instead of being a movie character. Right. She was really over the top being a record company executive. Maybe you loved it. I still love her. Maybe she played the part right. I don't know, but I'm so used to seeing her in short sketches. Right. That it's hard for me. Maybe she should have been a little bit more held back, in playing the role that she played. I don't know. That's just an opinion.
Well, for me, Kate McKinnon was a standout, but I knew I recognized her from somewhere, but I couldn't think where. See, I don't watch the new Saturday Night Live very much. I haven't watched them faithfully in many years. But then I remember when I heard where she was from, I said, "Oh, that's where I saw her before." So I didn't really have like a preconceived image of her or anything. I thought she was good for comedy relief in a lot of spots. Or the whole thing's a comedy, but she made some funny bits and things like that. I thought she was a standout. I personally enjoyed her.
Gotcha. Cool. Joe, what was your thoughts about the movie? I mean, what did you like about it? What did you dislike?
I got my notes here. Let me just see, but probably could wing it anyway. My thunder has been stolen. I like the cast. Yeah. The lead actor was so good. Hamish Patel. Did I get his name right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I thought he fit so well, and I saw an interview with the director where he knew right away that he was the one to pick. Right. Because while you might not think he was he kind of like, this is all subjective, but average maybe, that there was kind of jokes being made of that at his expense at times in the movie by Kate McKinnon. that's more realistic, I think. If you would, you would have had a typical type of star, quality man, that looks the part. I think that would have ruined it a little bit. And of course, one thing I do have to say is I was hoping that this would at least be an opportunity for young people, maybe especially who don't really know the Beatles catalog, to get a real good taste of the music. And I know they can't do all the songs entirely. It would be 3 hours or 4 hours, but in a couple of cases, I thought they did well. They presented Yesterday, the song, enough of it, and maybe In My Life, and I'm looking here, what else? Maybe Long and Winding Road. But I didn't think I was a little disappointed that there wasn't enough time given that people could say, hey, I like that song, man. I'm going to have to check these out by the Beatles because these are good songs. I don't think there was enough given to the music. I know that wasn't the point, really, but I would have liked a little bit more of that for the sake of young people. Mm-hmm. Maybe getting more involved in the music. Right. And of course, and he only sings like Let It Be. You only get the first verse 3 times or something like that. In a very funny scene. His parents were very funny too. Right. I got to say. And, I'll save the surprise for later. We'll talk about it. I can mention that, but we'll talk about that later, right? You let me know where you want to go. Mm-hmm. Because I don't want to say too much about that. Right. And that's it.
Oh, yeah. Like I said earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of covers, but this version did want me to hear more. I think it maybe has something to do with the fact that, rom-coms are my least favorite genre of all, Hollywood genres. I don't care for it. It's too mushy, and I thought some scenes were a little too long in this film for that. So, hearing his performances, which I thought were excellent, it wanted me to hear more. And there's one disappointing thing where if you watch that first trailer, it shows him singing something on the James Corbin show. And it was cut from the film. I don't know if you got to see if it showed it in the preview, because sometimes previews are different cuts than the actual cut can.
I didn't see that.
Okay, yeah. So there's a scene of him singing something on that James Corden show, which I would have loved to have seen. Like you said, guys said, In My Life was excellent. Yesterday was excellent. I love that punked out version of Help that was later on in the film. There's those little things that I noticed. Like the orchestration of A Day in the Life, you hear right before he gets hit by the bus, and you hear that work up to that scene where he gets hit by the bus, and then where you get that long piano note, it's actually him getting hit by the bus. Him going to Liverpool, and because he's having hard times, remembering the lyrics to Eleanor Rigby, so he goes to Liverpool to, he finds Eleanor Rigby's grave, and then goes to Strawberry Fields and sees the building destroyed, and then goes to Penny Lane and sees the barber shop, closed down. So those little things, when they do show him on the Corbin show, Corbin goes, here's Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. The last thing you see before that scene edit goes is you see Paul McCartney barefooted. I don't know if you guys noticed that. So that was pretty cool, So it was those little things, especially, as you guys said, no Oasis. So Beatles didn't exist. So
that was
Oasis
funny.
didn't exist, Cigarettes didn't exist.
Funny.
Was that because the Beatles were such big smokers that, since they don't exist,
I didn't take it that way.
It's just thoughts in my head,
It's probably the biggest things in the world don't exist. Coca-Cola is the number one drink. Yep.
That's a good point, Ken. And Harry Potter was huge as well. So that's a very good point that you make there. It's probably like things that were just massive throughout. The creation of Coca-Cola became the biggest soft drink there is. So yeah, that's a good point. So those little things are the things that I really appreciated. I thought his singing voice was well. I watched that same video that you watched, Joe, on that CBS with Danny Boyle. who I should say is a great director. Danny Boyle is, he Slumdog Millionaire, Shallow Grave, Trainspotting 2, 127 Hours. Great filmography. If you're not familiar with this guy, check out his back catalog. It's some really good stuff.
I wanted to. Oh, I'm sorry. When you have a chance, I wanted to. Well, before I forget, I should have said before. The CD. I got the CD of the soundtrack of yesterday to throw that in. We were talking about the songs. The CD does have longer versions of the songs, full versions of the songs, and for anybody that's interested. And that you heard in the movie, just snippets of. You have in full. You have both. You have the snippet from the film and the full version.
Okay. Cool. Is Hey Jude on it?
And if you buy, if the Hey Jude's on it in full, and if you buy the Target exclusive, which I did, you get Hey Dude, the whole song singing Hey Dude.
Cool.
If you're so inclined.
I got to say something about that because there's a scene in there that I'm sure everyone has seen where he's given advice from Ed Sheeran to call the song Hey Dude. And I'm 99% certain that the first time that Paul McCartney was interviewed by Howard Stern, he said to him, "You should have called the song Hey Dude." So I think Howard probably deserves some credit for this. Yeah. I'm serious about that. That's not.
It's funny. I've heard people.
That was a slip.
I can't see Ken. I heard some people say that there was other songs. Or at least one of the songs that I don't know called Hey Dude previously anyway. I don't know if that's true. Yeah. A heavy metal song or something, maybe?
Maybe.
Somebody might know.
But there's also, I don't know if you guys noticed this too, but when they're doing I Want to Hold Your Hand, it sounded like they really did say I get high instead of I can't hide.
Yes.
So,
yes, I noticed
that. You guys noticed that as well. But Cool, you were probably the least the least interested in seeing this out of the four of us. So you finally did get to see it, and what did you think?
Well, I'm fully expecting the virtual eggs to be thrown at me, and maybe I need to put my crown back on.
No, that's all right.
I thought it was okay. First of all, I understood this was not going to be a documentary or anything like that. I knew that. I also, of course, knew about the premise. So I'm like, okay, I need to suspend disbelief. But there were some potholes too, but plot holes, and that kind of bothered me. Like the two characters, the Russian and I guess Woodleyan, who were not affected, and they still remember it, and it was never explained. Why were they spared? That kind of bothered me. The thing about, when they mentioned cigarettes and Coke and Harry Potter not existing, and I did keep thinking, what does that have to do with the Beatles? I was trying to figure that out. Which maybe it was nothing. And so it was things like that. But I will say, so that I'm not a complete Scrooge. I thought Himesh Patel did a great job, particularly on the ballads. The slow stuff, up-tempo stuff. Like, I didn't really care for that version of Help. I know what he was trying to do, and and he was very angry at that moment, and the words, clearly, applied to him at that time. But I will say, Long and Winding Road, and in my life, particularly, I thought, okay, he's not the most technical singer. I mean, he's kind of a pure singer. And I could really tell that he was thinking about what he was saying. He was thinking about those lyrics. Because I found myself, sure, we all know the lyrics, but I did find myself watching and, really listening and, thinking, wow, there's really a story here. And he expressed that very well. I appreciated that. The parents, you were mentioning the parents, they were cute. They were cute, and that they supported him. That they at times they thought, okay, this music thing, how adorable, but they still, they still supported him, which I appreciated. Did not like, I hate to say it, I did not like Kate McKinnon. I thought she was a little too over the top for me in this. particularly that line, it just made me kind of cringe at the end when Jack and Ellie are, he's revealed who really wrote the songs, and they're sort of trying to escape the theater, and Kate McKinnon's character Deborah, I think, is running after them, and she sings, starts yelling, "For the love of money!" I thought, oh, come on, it's like now we're getting into cartoon kind of, and so it was things like that, and just like, I was saying to somebody else, like the okay, we've got the cute love interest who's kind of quirky and wears sneakers with dresses and maybe cute hats and everything. Check. You've got the goofy best friend. In this case, he was funny. He was kind of funny. Check. And so to me, I could just sort of check all the romantic comedy tropes, and just the main thing was this little twist, and so I wasn't really that crazy about it, but there was that one scene that certainly brought me up short. So I don't know if you want to talk about it now.
Yeah, well, let's get to that one scene, which is got to be the highlight of the movie. At least it was.
Oh yeah,
for me.
Me too.
Ken Michaels. As someone that has listen to the Beatles, the music of the Beatles and Soul Beatles and John Lennon in particular, and you're sitting there and you're watching that scene, and it makes sense when that door opens and you see John Lennon standing there. It makes sense, because if you are living in a world without the Beatles, or if the Beatles never existed, there's a good chance John Lennon may still be alive. What were your thoughts, of Ken, when you saw that?
Well, that was a big shocker for me, and I think for most people. And what I loved about it was that the guy who played the older John, who would be 78, looks very much like John would look like today.
Robert Carlyle.
Yeah, and you've got to realize that this guy is not the John Lennon that wrote all the great songs that we've come to know and love. And if there's no John Lennon Beatle, there's no Cynthia, there's no Julian, there's no Yoko, there's no Sean, there's none of that history at all. He just led a normal life like anybody else. And it kind of makes you question, how are we better off? Because of the fact that John was murdered the way he was. If the Beatles existed, then look what happened to John. If the Beatles didn't exist, he'd be alive and healthy and be a normal person and, living a normal life. So it makes you question that. That was the one moment. And I got to tell you, and everybody who watched this show has got to feel the same way as I did. The moment when Jack asked John Lennon, "Can I have a hug?"
Right.
Every single one of us, if given the opportunity, would be asking that question. And I had a lump in my throat, even though he wasn't the John Lennon, of the Beatles, but still, you wanted to hug him anyway.
Right.
But it was a very emotional scene that caught me completely off guard. I didn't think that was going to happen. And, I love that little twist in the movie.
Right. So you see him, and then you realize, okay, this is not the John that was in the Beatles. This is not the witty, smart ass, John that we've come to know. So when I was watching this scene, I'm thinking, oh wow, this is a completely different take on John Lennon. And well, we finally did get a little something witty, while he was hugging Jack. He did say he needs very serious psychiatric help. So I thought that was a little bit so he did have some wit there with him, but watching it a second time today, I was just very excited for that scene to happen, and a couple of times before that scene came up, I just found myself getting a little emotional. I'm like, okay, here it's 5 minutes away, here it comes, and and it happened again. It was just as emotional, touching the second time around. Joe, how did you feel about the scene?
Oh, the same thing. I didn't know it was coming. These days, it's so difficult with the internet and everything. It's easy to get spoilers. I went not knowing it was going to happen, and especially when Robert Carlyle first opens that door, I mean, that shot looks like just like John to me. That's the biggest shock factor in a good way. And you were talking about, seeing movies, which is true. A few times you notice different things you hadn't seen the other times. Now, I saw it twice and didn't notice this, and I don't know if anybody here noticed it. After the second time, one of the people commenting on my videos, a couple of people said, "Did you notice the name of John's boat?" Did anybody notice the name of it?
No,
it was Imagine. And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "So the third time I'm looking for it now." When I saw it the third time, and I still wouldn't have noticed it, I don't think. They're sitting on a boat, the two of them. It's upside down, a rowboat or something, and they're talking. And all the way on the right side, it does say Imagine in script letters, which is also upside down. So you have to really be sharp to notice that. And that really was a nice touch. But I want to also add, I was extra happy because up to that point of the movie, as a big John fan, I was thinking, kind of Paul heavy on the songs. Hey, Paul has those great songs, those really commercial classic staples of Beatles. But I said, like, they're in a scene where Ed Sheeran and Jack were going to try to see who could write the best song in 10 minutes. They have a little contest. I said, this would be such a good place for Strawberry Fields Forever. Imagine them coming out with something bizarre like that. Right. But getting back to the scene, when I saw John, it made up for everything. I was like, they really gave John his moment. So that also felt really, really good. So I was just really touched by it. It's my favorite scene of the movie, and it's worth owning when it comes out for me on Blu-ray just for that. But I know my girlfriend's going to want to watch it, although she can't. She wouldn't be able to live in a world where there was no Harry Potter.
Yeah, I felt the same way too. I noticed the same thing. There was a lot of Paul songs, and then after seeing that scene, okay, well, it makes sense that maybe we'll kind of split it up a little bit like that. Kid O'Toole.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. When he opened that door, I knew John was going to make an appearance. I mean, I had gathered enough from what some people had said, although I said to them, don't tell me how he shows up. But I kind of expected it to happen somewhere. And when that door opened, I had a lump in my throat. I mean, it just brought me up short. You just thought, holy crap, that might have been what he would have looked like. And it does make you think, okay, if the Beatles hadn't existed, obviously, he wouldn't have become famous. And was that, he would have lived, and he was definitely in the film kind of living on his own terms, and it was that, would he have been happier? I don't know. You could play armchair psychiatrist forever with it, but it does kind of make you think about that. I will say, and my good friend Dara is watching, and she said earlier, and by the way, she gave you a shout out too, Joe. So loves your YouTube channel.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Dara's great. But anyway, she was saying she didn't like the actor that played John Lennon, which I honestly did not realize was Robert Carlyle until after the movie. He was almost unrecognizable to me. That's pretty amazing. I thought his voice didn't exactly sound like what I would picture John to sound like, didn't hear as much of a Liverpudlian accent. I wouldn't have wanted him to overdo it and almost make it cartoonish. We've seen that in a lot of Beatles biopics. But I don't know, that kind of bothered me. And the other thing too, I just kept thinking as they were talking, would John have really, and again, I don't know, but would he have really acted that way? He was this very wise, philosophical, gentle character, and I just kind of thought at times, would he really have greeted this stranger and really talked to him like that? I don't know, but again, I understand it's a romantic comedy, and then I shouldn't overanalyze it, but that part kind of bothered me. I just thought, would he really be that kind of touchy-feely, or would he tell him, right, screw off?
Yeah, right.
Well,
right.
How do you know what the John Lennon of age 78 would be?
Yeah, right.
You know,
Yeah, exactly.
who may have mellowed
Sadly,
quite a
no,
lot,
no.
and, you know.
Yeah, well, they did a good job. They did a good job hiding that scene. Websites like IMDb will generally have the complete, cast listed. They didn't include Robert Kylo. I had to do a little Google searching to find out who played the act. Robert Kylo ended up playing John Lennon. But yeah, I like that from Annie Nichols. The Liverpool John would have told him to sod off.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. That's exactly what I thought.
Would any of you like to kind of speculate what, world without, well, actually, first of all, let me just say that one of the best lines in the movie,
I know what
a world without Beatles is infinitely worse. And, I like
Yes.
to believe that is true. And would any of you like to speculate what, how the music scene would have looked like if the Beatles never existed?
That's
for me. I would have liked to have thought that maybe Rory and the Hurricanes became the biggest band, and they started. They started the British invasion, and Ringo continued to be the star that he is now. But
that's the movie a lot of us probably would have liked to see also. Maybe they could do another one if successful enough, do that angle of it, see what is the world really like. I mean, and I got to say those I like the whole scene with the two other fans who the only ones who remembered that the Beatles existed, although we don't really know how. But I think my girlfriend's the only one who pointed out that they're holding a yellow submarine, and she's like, "Where did they get the yellow submarine from?" And I'm like, we think, well, maybe they made it themselves, or they found some shop that had a, generic submarine. I don't know, but
actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, because that was one scene that kind of turned my expectations upside down, because when they came in and they had these grim faces, I thought, oh, they're going to expose them,
Yeah, I like that.
But then they turn around and say, no, we're happy that you're keeping the music alive because we missed it so much. And
they say they can't sing. They say we can't sing, So I mean, that's pretty amazing when you think about that too. Like, you'd be helpless. You can't. How you gonna? You can't do anything about it unless you want to go to a producer or something and say, "I got some ideas for songs," and you kind of sing them awkwardly and hum them till you get to the. That was a little interesting. I like those two characters being in there and fooling us, like you said, Kit, not really knowing what they're up to or what they want. I like that.
Yeah. You ever notice that the guy who dates Ellie, who actually is the one that gives Jack a break very early on because he notices the songs, he sort of has a 1965 Beatle haircut.
Yeah, I think you meant,
I guess that's true. That's true. That is kind of a fun thing, I will say, about the movie, that you do see these little Easter eggs. I loved the scene where Jack was brought in to the meeting where the record execs were plotting. I love the picture. Him holding the camera and something just like Paul did. I was just like, okay, I'll give him a point for that. That was a nice Easter egg.
And there's a lot of those that I thought were excellent. But Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually love what you were talking about, Joe. But the scene where Jack and Ed Sheeran are coming up with new songs, and Ed plays his new one, which is very good, and then Jack comes up with The Long and Winding Road, and then Ed Sheeran is like, I give up, It's great, to just
what does he say? He says you're Mozart, I'm
Salieri.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a great scene right there.
Yeah.
All right. So anybody else want to add anything to the film before we give our?
Hey Jude! How about Hey Jude at the end? Hey Jude. I just want to say about that I saw it 3 times. First couple of times it was pretty good audience, but people kept leaving. Hey Jude. I thought nobody wanted to really stay and hear it. Not many. But the third time, I happened to see it at a small theater with a lot of younger people in there. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I had gone in a little before the movie ended. previous show, so the credits were going up. And as I'm sitting in my seat, there's two black girls just getting into "Hey Jude." They're young and they're like singing on and on and on with it and getting into it. And I was, that's so good. It was a totally different audience for that show that I went to. I don't know why. And a lot of them stayed for "Hey Jude," which sounded fantastic on, especially the first big theater I saw it in, and the sound quality and that large is really good.
I wanted to say that unlike you, Tom, I love cover versions of Beatles songs.
Right.
I love when people do their own arrangements of them. But I think one of the things I like about the way they treated the Beatles catalog is that they didn't try to do carbon copies of what the Beatles did. Right. And it certainly works in the very beginning when Jack is just, all he has is his acoustic guitar. So when he does Beatles songs, it's just him alone and a guitar.
Right.
I do love that version of Help. I love that punkish version of Help. It really,
I do too.
It drives home the point that this music lends itself to so many different interpretations. It doesn't have to be the Beatles versions that you have to like the most, or even though they're not to me. But I do love different interpretations of Beatle music.
Yeah, no,
and the context of the movie too, I liked Help. Like what I think Kit was saying, she knows, she understands with the context of him being really mad and just venting. Yeah. I really like the way that fit in there.
Yeah, when somebody makes the song kind of like their own, kind of almost like Joe Cocker did with, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, or Isaac Hayes'
My Friends.
Or Isaac Hayes' version of something. I mean, it feels like a completely different song, and I mean that's when I tend to appreciate them a little bit more. But yeah, definitely. Anybody else? Kit, do you want any last thoughts?
Well, I mean, even though I wasn't as crazy about it, I will say, as I said, it really did get me thinking about just how important these songs and how ingrained in our culture and in our lives that this catalog has become. And it really made me think about that. Also, I was thrilled when I saw that article that appeared about, and that you mentioned earlier, Ken, about that, five Beatles songs ended up going up the charts. And I just thought that's wonderful because, if this is going to expose different audiences to the music, I'm all for that. And so it did its job in that sense too. So I, so I said, may not have been as crazy about it, but it had its moments, and if this will bring Beatles back on the charts, all good.
I stuck around to the very, very end, like I think a lot of people did, and sometimes they do that little gag where I'm like, something happens at the very end after the very last copyright goes up, and I'm saying they got to have Paul and Ringo sitting there, maybe watching the movie together. What do you think? Well, seemed like it would have been a nice band or something. Some kind of I was hoping they're going to have Paul and Ringo say something. Maybe they're working in a factory or something. I was real quick. That would have been amazing. But, I'm happy just the same.
I do want to just read a couple of comments from our viewers. One of them, Greg Thurman, said, great movie. Did you notice the outside shot of the studio was the old Western recorders on the movie Sunset Boulevard?
I did not notice.
Which I didn't know. And I want to try, I hope to find this, but I know one of our viewers said that if you saw the credits at the end, someone who does the video editing, his real name is George Harrison.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw that earlier. Yeah. Scrolling in the comments.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So, thank you, everybody. Great show. Kid O'Toole, what do you got coming up in your neck of the woods?
Well, I have my latest Deep Beatles went up, and it's about Leave My Kitten Alone, which was fun to write about. And I am also on a podcast, and part 2 just came out today. Part 1 is already up. It's the podcast is called Glass Onion on John Lennon. I'll have the link up on my Facebook page and also the Talk More Talk Facebook page. It's a great podcast, and we talk about John Lennon's last years creatively, mainly. It was a great conversation. So those are right now the 2 major things that are going on.
Gotcha. We just posted our season finale of Two Legs last week. So we're on a little bit of a break until September. We're working on getting shows and guests ready to go for September. And if you want to go to podbean.com and type in Two Legs, and you can check out all of season 3's episodes. You can reach us at twolegspodcast@gmail.com, and I'm on Facebook and as Tom Hunyadi, and you can always find Two Legs Facebook page, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. Also for us, Talk More Talk, you can email us at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. You can check out our Facebook page, Talk More Talk, and you can like the page, and that's when you'll get updates on when we're going to be live. It's usually every other Monday. Also, our Twitter page, was it Talk More Solo Talk 1, was it, Kit?
Talk More Talk 1.
Talk More Talk 1. Thank you very much. You can find us there as well. And then once the show is done, the Queen does all of her magic, and she whips all the shows into place, and she puts them all over the internet. Podbean, what else do we got? We got iTunes, we got the YouTube channel,
Play, Spotify, you name it.
Right. So, Ken Michaels, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, first of all, last week I got to interview Lawrence Juber. And I've interviewed Lawrence many times. He's a great person to talk to. And obviously, we talked about the Wings days. And as a matter of fact, we got into a similar conversation that we had a few shows back about whether or not Wings was a real band and should they be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And so we talked about that. There's always a chance I'm trying to get Lawrence on our show here, so that might happen. But he has a brand new CD out, which is called Downtown, named after the Petula Clark hit, and he does mainly jazz standards here, and one original song called Airfoil. It's all on acoustic guitar. He's an amazing guitar player, as every Beatle fan knows. If you go and see him at his shows or at the Fest for Beatle fans, he's just absolutely, when people see him for the first time and they're blown away, it's just like, when I go to a Paul concert or a Ringo concert, and there's people there who are seeing them for the first time. Hard to believe, but yes. And he's an amazing guitar player. So I'm actually giving away one copy of this on my trivia page. But I'm also going to be doing a special contest where I'm combining Lawrence Juber's latest CD and Denny Seiwell's latest CD.
Nice.
Boomerang, which came out something like half a year ago. A lot of great jazz music from this trio, and they do cover Live and Let Die on there. So it's going to be combined, those two CDs, and I will have 2 of each to give away, so there'll be 2 winners. That'll be on a special contest on my website, which probably will start, I'm guessing, Friday. That's at kenmichaelsradio.com. And also, earlier today, about an hour before the start of this show, I finished another program of Things We Said Today. And it's a very special show because it marks, believe it or not, our 300th episode of the podcast. So our regulars, Alan Kozin and Darren DeVivo, are part of the show, but I thought we'd bring back Steve Marinucci, who started the show with me, and Al Sussman. So all 5 of us are part of this show. Talk about a marathon show. It goes on for over 2 hours. It's the longest show that we've ever done. We talk about a lot of things, our favorite episodes of the past, and our top 3 Beatle moments of all time, group or solo. And also we talk about what's going on in the news, just like we did here on this show. So that, because I'll have to do some editing, and it's over 2 hours there, it probably will be coming out Friday or next Monday. But it's the longest show we've ever done, and I hope you can make it to 400.
Yeah.
You might have us beat on 2 legs. I don't think we've gone over 2.5 hours. Congratulations! Listen,
me of all people, I'm the one that wants the show to be 1 hour. Try to keep it strict to 1 hour, and no, but,
Yeah, but seriously though, I mean, 300 is great. Congratulations! I remember. Listening, I think it was like episode 9 when I first, caught wind of Things We Said Today. And I don't know if it was 9 or 6, but either way, it was the episode where you and Steve first talked about Magical Mystery Tour, and Steve is so passionate about not liking Magical Mystery Tour,
and I'm defending it.
And you were defending it, and the conversation. I mean, I loved the way you guys were interacting with each other, and and I was hooked instantly then. So again, congratulations on a job well done, and I look forward to the next 300.
We talk about that in this show.
Right.
The first 2 years of things we said today were just me and Steve, and it was all news driven.
Right.
The show plus whatever interviews we can get.
Yeah.
So
plus, I would say probably 40 of the books that I've got now is because of your guys' show. It's bringing on all these authors. It's really cool to hear about the journey of their books, and that's one of the things that David and I do on our show is we love to have authors on as well because of your show. So, but Joe,
I think half of your collection back there is what you won from every little thing, my live broadcast.
Yeah, anyways, but Joe, what's going on with you, buddy?
I got nothing. No, Ken, you're a tough act to follow. Let me tell you, with all those accomplishments. No, well, my channel is, of course, on YouTube. It's called Mean Mr. Mayo, which is the name that I go by, and I do memorabilia stuff that I have. I get new Beatles finds, interesting things to show you, and I got to get back onto more reviews. But I recently did a pretty extensive Amoeba gig, in-depth review. So that's my most recent video that you might be interested in, and I do some other fun things too, where I just get away from the music and just do some goofing stuff like that. So I hope you'll think about maybe checking it out, folks. Thanks.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, again, go ahead, Ken.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I'm going to be a guest on When They Was Fab.
Awesome.
So I'll be telling you all about that.
That
should be
great. Great guy.
Ed and Lonnie are great.
They are.
Having a good time. Awesome. Well, again, and I want to thank everybody who checks us out here on the live chat. We really appreciate you guys coming on and typing in all your responses. It's great hearing from all of you here and then on our YouTube channel and on everywhere else. So we really appreciate you guys coming on, taking the time out of your night to listen to us ramble on about all the stuff that we are passionate about, just like you guys are. So for Kid O'Toole, the Queen, Joe, me, Mr. Mayo, Ken, Dr. Johnny Fever Michaels. I'm Tom Hungotti saying, take a dose of rock and roll and cool it down with cool, slow. And I just screwed that up, but I don't care.
What?